Carib Nation TV attended the Jamaican Diaspora Conference in July 2017. We had the opportunity to sit down with the chairman of the conference, Mr. Earl Jarrett, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Jamaican Nationals Group, known as JN Group, which includes a commercial bank, a savings bank, insurance company, and a number of other financial services, a major player in Jamaica. During our conversation, Mr. Jarrett shared with us his perspective on the American financial system de-risking programs and the lack of correspondent banking relationships for Jamaican and Caribbean banks. These and other issues were discussed with Mr. Jarrett on Carib Nation next. Well, we are here at the Jamaica Diaspora Conference in downtown Kingston at the Jamaica Conference Center. And we are here to speak to the person who really made this happen. The chairman who organized everything, Earl Jarrett, head of Jamaica National Group. I used to say JNBS, I have to remind myself it's Jamaica National Group. It's a real pleasure to have a chance to speak.
Thank you for being here, for you coming down to Jamaica and for having this discussion. It has been a tough job to get this conference done in 4 months, but there was a great team, and so we delivered it, and the folks are happy. We have roughly some 1,400 persons here, and the content of the discussions have been quite rich.
And we are impressed, I'm telling you. This took some organization, and especially with that size coming from the diaspora.
It did. And I must commend the diaspora, because for the community to respond in such a short time, to invest their funds to come here, speaks to the deep interest in the outcomes for Jamaica, and also the fact that I believe many of the persons we have seen believe that the economy has made a corner turn, and that there's a positive outcome at the end. So it has been a really good set of discussions, and you don't get this sort of complaining type of meeting, but people trying to understand how they can navigate the country, or they can navigate government, what are the investment opportunities. And
I think part of the problem in the past, and I'm sure you will admit,
yes,
there has not been an effective mechanism to engage with the diaspora. I think there's a certain amount of anxiety in the diaspora. We want to do something, we want to engage, we want to be a part of this dynamic in Jamaica. But it has never been structured in such a way to make it simple.
You see, my impression is that there's been a bit of ambivalence as it relates to the diaspora. People see the diaspora as contributing some $2 billion in private transfers to families, and many persons have measured the diaspora simply in that context. People still reflect on the diaspora and its origins, and not what it is today. And so today we got a report from the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, which spoke to the contribution of the diaspora, and they are estimating that diaspora is contributing almost 24% of GDP when they measured all of the indicators in terms of savings and investments, remittances, and the businesses that spin off remittances, exports, philanthropy. You're looking at a community that is quite significant. And I believe the study made an interesting observation that we need to treat the diaspora community and the Jamaican community as basically one economic space in two different locations. So I think that what's happening is that up to now, there's been a feeling that the diaspora is good for us. But I think the CaPRI study today demonstrates that it's not just good for us, but the larger numbers of persons in the diaspora, 3 million more persons. What we saw today as well, which I believe for many Jamaicans they did not understand, was that the diaspora represents a highly educated community. People tended to have a view of where the diaspora fell on the demographic pole. I think today made it clear that we're looking at a fairly highly educated community, highly invested as well. The income levels for the diaspora are very high. So I believe after today, if we get that message out, people will begin to understand that this diaspora is a very, very important part of our economy. And you can but imagine the state of the Jamaican economy with the limited growth that if you were to take out that diaspora, what we would face. So it's really been quite a powerful day hearing that data being put out by
yes,
CaPRI.
24% of GDP is nothing
Absolutely.
to frown on.
Absolutely
You know,
significant.
that's more than any other sector of the economy.
Absolutely, and so you ask the question then, when you talk about the streamlining and the focus on the diaspora, now that we know that number, then policy must begin to follow that. There must be the institutional shaping, the appropriate budget allocation.
Yes.
The private sector themselves. I mean, what came out today when we learned that roughly 10% of our exports go into the diaspora community. And therefore the private sector now need to realize that this is not some fly-by-the-wind type of thing, but that it's an important part of their export strategy. And so I think today's study will, if properly communicated, begin to change the way in which Jamaicans, both private sector and government, respond to the diaspora. I think what we saw today was the fact that respect is due.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, this is one of the things that many people in the diaspora have felt that they're taken for granted.
Yes.
You know, there was a time when we had a dedicated attaché
Yes.
at the embassy to
Yes.
deal with diaspora affairs. We don't have that anymore.
That's correct.
They also has questions about not having a minister of state for diaspora affairs.
That's correct.
We know you don't have to have a political person, and
Yes.
but you have a political person, you get the impression that the person has the ear of the political leadership.
Yes, yes.
So that makes a big difference in perception, at
Yes.
least. The other thing is, when we look at, you mentioned 10% of exports,
Yes.
but there's also the service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which we didn't touch on today.
Exactly.
So if you factor that in, you begin to get a totally different picture, because
Yeah.
you do have many of those persons in the diaspora who are providing services to the country at rates that are, very competitive. And so these are things that we need to consider as we go forward as well too.
And in this study, in terms of export,
Yes.
it doesn't take into consideration that 2-point-something billion dollars a year coming in through money transfer agencies,
Yes.
which also have the local component to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. But just to dig a little deeper on the services side, I have come across many doctors here who are providing medical services to Jamaicans living abroad and even
Yes.
others living abroad.
Yes.
You do have people who are providing other financial services, which, as I said, really competitive rates to what they pay overseas, and
Yeah.
that would not be counted in the
That's right.
in the whole picture. And
That's right.
oftentimes, as persons come here to either receive that service, they tend to have a holiday here as well too. So we have those spin-off effects that are coming through. But I think that study today, there's a saying that what gets measured and gets counted gets attention. And so today we get a measurement, so now we're going to see what's
And
attention.
part of the problem with
Yes.
our country is that for time immemorial, we've tried to make policy without data.
That's correct.
We
That's
have
correct.
not been very good at empirical data collection.
That's correct.
But so I'm very happy to see CaPRI engage in this exercise
Yes.
now. And it is going to encourage more people in diaspora to share their information,
That's
because
good.
people have been skeptical. Oh, it's not going to be used for anything, government just collecting data. But I think this conference could really be a game changer.
Yes.
And I must commend you for the role you have played in putting the structure of this conference together, getting these people on the panel, and even though there may have been some folks in the diaspora said, well, we haven't been participating
Yes.
so much in putting this together. I think they'll be very encouraged.
Well, it's a starting point. And one thing
Yes.
that I think that we need to do as well, as we have seen here, the diaspora is not a homogeneous place.
Oh, it's not.
You have various professions at play. And coming out of the discussions here is a need for us to have specific sectoral discussions. So today I learned that there's a group of Jamaicans who are part of the American Medical Association.
Oh, yes.
And they meet at the conferences, and it might be useful for us to be able to attach ourselves to those meetings and begin to have meaningful dialogue with those groups of persons.
Yes.
Begin to shape the agenda for Conference 2019 from now.
Yes.
Not 4 months or a year before, but from now we begin to decide how we're going to shape it, because it's a changing world. We are seeing on a global level what's happening with the UK and the move towards Brexit, and the fact that the UK and Caribbean, Jamaica will now have to have its own bilateral arrangements.
Yes. Yeah.
We are seeing where the United States is pushing for bilateral arrangements rather than regional type of arrangements. And we have learned that in the case of Uruguay, they were able to carve out a separate bilateral with the United States.
Yeah.
And so I think for Jamaica, we now need to begin to increase that level of conversation at the conferences. And I believe what we saw at this conference, or seen at this conference, is really somewhat of a demographic shift as well.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing, as we learned, many educated, qualified persons coming to the meeting, and they want to participate in discussions that they can.
Yes, because one of the things that we in the diaspora have talked about ad nauseum is that Jamaican expertise in the diaspora are not used when opportunities arise.
That's correct.
And it's not that many diaspora don't attempt to have their expertise brought forward, but it's just that mindset, that whole mindset of going way back when, that they don't recognize. Someone was talking about the large percentage of Jamaicans with college degrees living
70%.
abroad. The World Bank has this data.
Yes.
The U.S. Census Bureau has this data. The U.S. Census Bureau shows that people of Jamaican and Caribbean descent are in the top echelons of the postgraduate and professional degrees in the United States on a per capita basis.
Yes.
So our countries have to learn how to take advantage of that.
Well,
and I think I've seen some steps in that direction with what was discussed in this conference.
Absolutely, and the CaPRI study made that point as well. And I remember you and I sat on a platform in New York a couple of years ago, which was hosted by USAID and CaPRI. And the point was raised as to why don't we use the diaspora community when we're filling some of these board positions in Jamaica. Every single time the government changes, you have a raft of boards that require directors. It's a great opportunity for us to not just look locally, but also to leverage the experience of Jamaicans overseas.
And they pay lip service to that, but never get it done.
Well, what I'd say is let's put it as a work in progress. I mean, we heard Michael Leachin today make the point that often in his business he had to parachute in people to bring new expertise and new ideas to change his bank. In a similar way, I believe the country could benefit if we were able to bring in persons who have lived in a very developed and advanced society to help to make a difference.
And some of the things we're trying to do in Jamaica, they've already experienced that up there.
Done already. Why recreate the wheel?
And you mentioned the demographics. Yes, there has been a misunderstanding about the demographics, because many people see a lot of Jamaicans who leave here to find a better life.
Yes.
They don't understand that not just first generation, but second generation Jamaicans have gone to college, postgraduate degrees, many entrepreneurs, many business people, very successful. And again, the Census Bureau shows that on a per capita basis, the entrepreneurship of the Jamaican and Caribbean, people of Jamaican and Caribbean heritage are way up there in terms of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So I know the diaspora is the focus of this week's discussion, but I also know that JN, former JNBS, has had a long history of engaging with the diaspora and providing certain services to the diaspora. Tell me a little bit about the shift or the enhancement of that focus going forward.
Well, we have always responded to our customers and members, and so many of our Jamaicans live abroad. And as we have learned today, I'm now not surprised that so much of our business comes from abroad. It's 24% of the economy. And I'm certain if you check all the banks and institutions, you will find a large number of Jamaicans. And so everybody in Jamaica needs to wake up to that reality. The researcher made a point that when she was looking at Jamaican-run companies, she looked through all the registered companies in Jamaica where the nationality of the directors were Jamaican, but the addresses were overseas, and she found a large number of companies in Jamaica are actually what you call diaspora companies. So Jamaica National has always followed its customers, and we have always sought to find ways to serve those customers. We're heavily a mortgage provider. What we have done on February 1 is that we have converted Jamaica National Business Society into Jane Bank, and we have created an entire group of companies called the Jamaica National Group, which include financial operations and non-financial operations. What this does is that the restrictions of the Building Society law is now removed.
Okay.
So right now you can have a checkbook from Jamaica. Jamaica National can now deliver a credit card, and we do have a credit card, an international Visa card. We now can provide other types of lending, development loans. On the non-financial side, we can go get into property development, and we have started down that path. We have a fairly large technology company. So the JN Group now, still owned by its members, including those members in the diaspora, is now a large, diversified financial and non-financial conglomerate, which will make the appropriate investments in areas that can benefit both Jamaica and its members and customers. So it's a really exciting time, I believe, for the organization.
You currently have agencies in New York and Florida.
We currently, through our remittance business and through the bank, have agencies and representative offices in New York, in Florida, in Toronto, in London, in Birmingham, in Manchester, in Nottingham, in the United Kingdom.
In terms of...
And in the Cayman Islands.
In terms of access for transfer of money, remittances and so on.
Yes.
In the United States, that's a huge geographical area.
Yes.
How do people, say, living in Washington, D.C. area, access JN in New York or
I believe
or
we do have an agent in Washington, D.C., but I should share with you that we are on the cusp of launching our online remittance service in the United States. We have already launched it in the UK and in Canada. We're going through some regulatory procedures now, so you'll be able to do it from behind your PC at home, wherever you are. But I should share with you that despite the limited geographic reach that we have in the United States, which is primarily where our people are,
yes.
New York, Florida, Connecticut, and Atlanta, Georgia, we are contributing to Jamaica just about 9% of total remittances from the United States. Now that's significant because when you think about it, it's only from those few states where my competition is now covering all
the entire
states,
United States,
including Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it speaks to the market acceptance of our organization. But the future for us, we believe, is going to be to continue to provide a great service for people, because it's really much a commodity, to continue to do what we're doing, reinvesting our profits into the community, to win those customers and friendships, and those people, those persons will continue to be supportive of JN.
Carib Nation TV is seen in 22 countries in the Caribbean.
Excellent.
It's in several, it can be seen anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, because it's also online.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
Good.
But there are certain cable channels in the United States, Toronto and UK that also carry it.
Yes.
So the Jamaicans in the West Coast and the Midwest of the United States, and in the Houston and those places of the United States, what message do you have for them? Well,
the message I have for them is, one, they should continue to listen to your station. That's one. Two, we have noted from the population data, cluster of Jamaicans in Texas,
yes.
Cluster of Jamaicans in California.
Yes.
We are programming to get to those communities through the online services. But beyond that, my commitment over the next year is to begin to take what we began here into those communities. So I'm going to go to Texas and have community meetings, begin to engage with the community there. I'm going to go to California, and I'm going to find the Jamaicans wherever they are. I'm going to be hunting down Jamaicans to find them so we can have that conversation about what's happening. You should note that Michael Leachin made a point today, which we should not ignore. He made a point that he's making more profits out of Jamaica. He made a point that what is wrong is that there's a perception gap, that people are unaware of what's happening, and he's taking advantage of that perception gap. My job is to open up that perception gap and to share with the rest of the Jamaicans everywhere what he knows, so that that information asymmetry.
As a matter of fact, he made that statement a few years ago when he just came back to Jamaica and said the opportunities for investment in Jamaica, he can make more money here than anywhere else in the world.
But he said people don't know.
People don't know it.
So I'm going to help them to know.
But, and this is the thing about these major investors.
Yes.
They know where to make the money.
That's correct.
It's like when the stock market is failing, they buy.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it goes up, they make tremendous profit.
Well, you see, that's what in our world I call it information asymmetry. I know something and you don't know.
Exactly.
And so my job is to help people to know
the information advantage.
Absolutely.
And certainly you have a brand,
Yes.
which is already widely accepted.
Yes.
Access to the brand is critical.
Yes.
And I think the diaspora really wants to hear what you just said.
Yes.
And will wait to get those launches in their communities.
Yes.
And you know, there's a network of Jamaican organizations all over the US.
That's correct.
And you can always find key people in each of these communities.
That's correct.
That can make this happen.
Well,
and we are very well connected to some of these people.
Well, I will certainly reach out to you.
And
because,
we'll be more than happy to facilitate that.
You know, for the next, I'm now into my year starts in April, so in September is the end of my second quarter. We're getting that bank organized. I said the checkbooks are rolling out right now. And so I'm planning to begin my movement on the road somewhere in the last quarter, going straight through to the beginning of the first quarter of next year.
We'll be more than happy to help you facilitate that.
Well, I look forward to that.
And the other thing now, I'd just like to, I know in setting up your bank,
Yes.
you had to jump through some serious hoops.
Yes, legal and
because of US laws, the
Yes.
new laws, the FATCA and all the stuff
That's
that were
correct.
coming on stream. How have you managed to get
Well,
through
I
some
share
of
with you the
those?
biggest challenge that we have is actually in relation to correspondent banking.
Right.
That's a major challenge, and in fact, it can undermine the development that we're seeing in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and in developed countries around the world. And essentially, what's happening is that the major banks around the world are saying we don't want to do business with certain countries in some instances. We don't want to do business with certain people. We are de-risking,
Yeah.
and that's a serious issue. And what we have learned in the process is that banking, like any other business, is about building great relationships.
Exactly.
And I believe that for the Caribbean, we have not been investing in what I call corporate or business diplomacy. And I believe over the next few months, that's something that the region has to respond to. We have to find the time to invest in building those relationships,
Yes.
building those corporate diplomacies, building political diplomacy as well, too, because a lot of these international banks are responding to political pressure
They do.
that's coming out of their own country.
Absolutely.
And so we need to leverage the diaspora network,
Yes.
our political representatives who
Yes.
live in those markets, our congresswomen, our senators, to begin to start the conversation about the fact that the perception of risk, again, we're seeing information asymmetry, in that the banks overseas are having a perception of the risk about Caribbean banks and Jamaican banks, which is not what reality is.
And the next time you come to Washington,
Yes,
you must have an opportunity
yes,
to address whether the congressmen and women or their staff
yes,
who consider themselves part of the Caribbean caucus.
yes,
These are friends of Jamaica and Capitol Hill.
good,
We are not using that friendship
yes,
to our benefit, and they want to hear from us.
yes, yes.
They want to hear from you. So I would implore that you have that on your agenda the next time you're coming to Washington.
I will certainly book it. I may well need to
Yes.
help you to build those correspondent relationships
Yes.
with those political people.
Yes,
as well, too.
and
Yeah.
you know, the co-chairs of the Caribbean caucus
Yes,
are Yvette Clark,
yes.
Maxine Waters,
Good friend.
and Stacey Plaskett from Virgin Islands.
Good, good,
But
good.
It's quite a very active group, you know, and this includes bipartisan support. It's not just from the
On one
Democratic side.
Yeah.
Both Democrats and Republicans.
Yes. I'm glad you raised that point, and it's a point that I've mentioned earlier about the absence of corporate diplomacy. I believe for many years, we didn't think it was necessary, but I think the moment now speaks to that. In fact, my own view is that all of these changes are actually affirming independence. It's
Yes.
forcing us to accept the reality between the risking, between the fact that many of our old trade arrangements are falling away. It's forcing us to really take on the full responsibility of independence.
Yes.
And not rely on preferences and special market access. And we now call upon to invest both as a private sector
That's right.
and government in the business of diplomacy. And so, you know, I agree with you that we need to really work hard at how we build out on that engagement.
And Carib Nation went around the marketplace today,
Yeah.
and we talked to some of the exhibitors, and we're going to hear that
Yes,
in a special program.
yes,
And there was one in particular, and I won't identify that
Yes.
one, who is breaking into the U.S. market.
yes,
They are manufacturers.
Yes.
A large manufacturer here. You
Right.
probably know which is, but I won't say who.
yes, yes,
But there are other manufacturers from Jamaica who are there already, who are well established.
yes,
And it's quite interesting that all the time the concentration is New York and Florida. But the mid-Atlantic You know, people leave all the way from Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, to come to Washington, D.C. to find Jamaican products. You know, people from southern New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, large concentrations of Caribbean people. We have about 65,000 Jamaicans in Maryland.
But you see, what's happening there is that it's really about risk and management of risk. And what's happening with many Jamaican organizations, it's like it's tiptoeing into a market that they may not necessarily understand, and where there's not that much trade support and trade facilitation here. I mean, I don't know if you can find 10 international trade expert lawyers in Jamaica who would help persons to navigate the various rules, not just on a federal level, but on a state-by-state level to do business in the United States.
Yeah.
And so what we tend to do here in managing the risk is that you start where your strength is, and your strength is, again, the Jamaican diaspora. So you go straight to where those clusters are. But the fact is, I mean, today we had a senior executive from a U.S. finance firm here, and he just loves ackee and saltfish.
Absolutely.
You know, he came to Jamaica on holiday, he loved the Jamaican products and services. So we now need to find a way to get our product across the network. There's a great American firm, Golden Cross Bakery, which is now through the chill room sections of the supermarket, expanding its products right across the entire United States. And so what you're seeing here is managing the risk, managing the capital as well. And so they're moving slowly into the markets, and as they get the confidence, then the expansions will come on there.
To get back a little bit and real quick, the other thing is we have to encourage information flow to the diaspora.
That is something that we got.
Information flow to the diaspora, because oftentimes, and I'm not, yes, for opportunities here, but in terms of where you need the diaspora to make a difference politically in the United States, you have to keep them informed. I try in whatever way I can.
Well, you're doing it right now.
and Carib Nation is one of those vehicles.
You're doing it right now.
I also do it through my blog, you know, and stuff like that. But it's important that the information coming out of the government, what kind of issues coming up. We don't want to have to go online and read about this in the Observer or the Jamaica Gleaner. We would like a constant flow of information out of the embassy across the diaspora, because the inputs that we must have to make a difference starts in the communities in where they live.
Well, I believe today that came out very clearly. In that session that dealt with economic growth today, it came out very clearly that people were not happy with the fact that they did not have information. And I believe there's a commitment that's going forward to make that happen. To the extent that I can, I will certainly do that.
Well, you know, Mr. Jarrett, it is such a pleasure talking to you.
It has been a pleasure.
And talking to someone who knows what is happening, what is going on, and how to get things done, and understands very well the diaspora. I want to thank you very much for coming on Carib Nation and talking to me.
Thank you, and I look forward to being back here on the program.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.